Hi, everybody. I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor, and welcome back to the Smart Performance Podcast. S for self-care, M for mindful growth, A for adaptive learning, R for rhythmic operation, T for a thriving community, and P for performance. Again, I'm happy to be here today with Joyce. We're going to have a really highly impactful next 15 to 20 minutes. I promise you it will be actionable as something you can start doing today or tomorrow morning. So stick with us. I promise it will have an positive impact to improve your resilience. And that's going to be the topic of today. We all know that our negative brain takes us all kinds of places we should not be going. We worry about the things that will never happen. So resilience is a great topic to talk about. Joyce, thank you very much for joining me today on the Smart Performance Podcast. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me, Dutch. My name is Joyce Odettison, everyone. I'm so happy to be here and share with you. I own Interpersonal Wellness Services Inc., and I've been running my company now for 28 years. We provide resilience for teams and leaders and organizations to identify the burnout, stop conflict, and prevent many of the stress leaves and performance issues that you face in the workplace. So I'm so happy to be here.
So thank you for having worked for 28 years. You must have started very young, by the way, right? So I always say that the word resilience is one of these consultative attributes, one of these fancy words. So take us back to your journey, your experience. What does resilience really mean? What is your definition of that?
It's interesting that you say that, Dutch, because I have been teaching workplace wellness for years and years and years. And the goal of everything we do is so that we can be resilient. Why do you get up in the morning and have breakfast? It's so that you will have the stamina. That's part of your physical resilience. You know that we say breakfast is necessary for our brain to function. We need to feed ourselves. That is part of the mental resilience. And I teach 9 dimensions of well-being for resilience. So these are the 9 areas where we build resilience. You go to the gym, you're building muscle resilience, you're building resistance so that your body can tolerate most physical stress. The reason why we do stress management is so that we can help our mind. So we need to start seeing resilience as that thing out there and recognize that it is the fuel for life.
I love it. Very well said. Now, of course, the most difficult thing is that for people to realize that they are at or near burnout or something is not quite right. So
Yes.
before you can start building that muscle of resilience itself, what do people need to look inwardly first? What are they feeling? What are they sensing, but not doing something about? Before they maybe seek out your help or go on that journey of self discovery.
Yeah. So if you're a leader, you're a professional, you're a high performing professional, and you're feeling drained, you're feeling kind of foggy, unusually irritable. As in my work, I'm a conflict analyst and I go into a lot of conflict situations. And it's usually when people are snappy, when they have too much going on. You know, Joyce, it was such a stressful time. This happened in my family, or this was going on at work, or we had this big project, or I didn't get enough sleep. These are the times we tend to lose our patience. These are the times we tend to become more easily triggered by what's going on around us in our environment. So it's very important for us to understand what resilience is. And if you're feeling that way, you're not weak. It's not weakness. Those are just the resilience signals. And we need to learn to recognize those resilience signals and be able to respond to them. They're there. That's information. Don't ignore them. It's so important.
Yeah, these are outward symptoms that people should pay close attention to. If they don't, that can actually lead to medical problems, right? From high blood pressure to strokes and heart attacks and et cetera, et cetera. So one of the things when we talk about resilience and discovery and self-awareness and is that it is E plus R equals O, right? That events in life are going to happen. And
Yes.
out of those events, you're going to have outcomes. It's how
Yes.
you respond to them versus how you react to them. And
Mhm.
maybe even we should say that you respond is really the word resilient, right? To talk a little bit, when something happens in somebody's life, the first gut reaction is fight or flight, is lower brain, right? And that's not where we want to be. So what is it that you say to somebody that is feeling this? Is something happening in their life? How would they recognize it, and what is the first and second step you would recommend they take to start on that discovery of resilience to overcome an event?
Well, right now we're living in a time of rapid change. And change are happening. We're facing more natural disasters, more global upheavals are happening across the globe, and things are changing so fast. And then, of course, in our internal life and in the workplace, people are stretched. There are cutbacks, there are heavy workloads, there are constant changes, and there are more interpersonal strain. The reality is, people are making this mistake of waiting until resilience collapse, until they're burnt out and they just cannot get out of bed. And so many clients tell me, "Oh, Joyce, I just couldn't get out of bed," and or "I just couldn't deliver on this project." Then it becomes a performance issue or a personality issue. As I mentioned before, the signals are important. So let me share with you quickly. Ask yourself these three questions. Am I more impatient or reactive than usual? Am I thinking, is my thinking foggy? Like, am I not clear in my thoughts? Am I forgetful, scattered, struggling to focus? Now, this is over and beyond our attention deficit, which we all have these days, because we are all struggling with our attention. And this is one of the resilience currencies we teach in our currency of resilience program. I believe that resilience is a currency. And you need to ask yourself, am I withdrawing from people, avoiding decisions or hard conversations? Am I falling apart when something seemingly not that traumatic happens, but I'm falling apart, right? Or am I able to recognize this occurred? This is something I should do something about. What are my best strategies? Because we see a lot of resilience deficit happening in poor decision making. People are making decisions that are career limiting, life changing, relationship damaging, and we have to come back to recognize that these are all the results of the resilience deficit that we're facing.
It is interesting. That's exactly what reacting is, right? All the things you just described are all lower brain activities where people don't take the time to process. Now,
Yeah.
what you were talking about is people who are already at or near burnout, right? And sadly, 60% of the workforce is at or near burnout. So the intervention is, listen, I need to recognize something is wrong and I need to go ask for help, right? I need to talk to somebody
Mhm.
before something really goes wrong, like I make a life altering decision that I will learn to regret over time.
Mhm.
So I want to switch to the proactive side. Building resilience is like a muscle. Tell us about your 10-minute resilience strategy that you have developed. And how do you address that with your teams, your clients, your mentees?
Well, that's a really good question, because the first thing we have to remember, we're not broken. Knowing is power, right?
Yep.
Because you can intervene. Now you know where you are. We say, let us measure and map resilience in 9 dimensions: spiritually, socially, emotionally, occupationally, intellectually, environmentally. We're going to also look at your financial, your physical, and your interpersonal. These are the 9 dimensions where we focus on. In your physical dimension, if your body is depleted, you know you have to get your water, get the proper food, get the help, get your medical concerns. But if you are the place where you're not unhealthy, but you're starting to recognize some of those signs I mentioned earlier, well, here are something you ask yourself. Am I feeling this way, overwhelmed because I'm carrying too much? Because I myself end up burning out, not because I didn't know what to do, but it's because I didn't have a way to measure my actual resilience. I was teaching wellness in organizations. But I had, my plate was full, and I crashed. I ended up passing out in an airplane 30,000 feet above because my plate was full and I didn't have that measurement. And one of the things we teach is measuring your resilience. We provide a full resilience index that helps you to put in your activities, identify how you are doing and what your resilience numbers are. Because when you understand your numbers, you are better able to make those decisions. You want your numbers to be above 5. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you at? Are you putting too much on yourself? Am I carrying too much? Is there something I need to shift? Can I delegate something? Can I ask my boss for help? Sometimes we prevent ourselves from getting the support because of our mindset. Oh, if I ask my boss, they're going to think I'm weak or I'm lazy. No, you say, you know what? I've been looking at what I'm carrying right now. And at this juncture, I need to let go of a few things. Can we discuss and prioritize what that is? We need one of our challenge in our resilience deficit that we have is communication. We don't know how to articulate and communicate to meet our needs and set proper boundaries. Am I setting the right boundaries? Am I asking for help? And do I know how to? And sometimes we have to coach people on
Yeah.
how to negotiate the support they need, whether it's in their personal life or is it in their work life with their boss or with colleagues. This is very, very important.
Good, really good insight. So let's take it to a point that this is my little Great Dane puppy coming to say hello to us.
Ah,
Here, I have to keep her. She's 15 weeks and she is finding her own resilience in the house over here
I'm
and
sure.
trying to cope when I'm on calls with people. My left hand is suffering because of that. But so with that said, is that have you experienced this for yourself, by the way, or have you always been able to stay ahead of the game? Of because one of the things that I can say is that as somebody who has gone from a doing to a leader position, and often we don't have the skills and the really deep understanding of what it is to lead. What happens is that we end up doing more. And,
Mhm.
one of the questions I often ask when I speak to a group of people is that by a show of hands, how many of you are multitasking? And they all go, "Oh, I'm multitasking." Yeah, what is how much how how much do you work? 100%, 120%. Well, the news is that anybody who says I'm a multitasker and I work at 100%, you are setting yourself up for failure.
Yes,
So
correct.
I love your little measuring tool of making that self-assessment to where I am. And my guide to people is this, right? Is that if you work 32 hours out of a 40-hour work week, you are at capacity. Well, on occasion, it's okay to ramp it up to 100%. But if you're consistently at 85%, you're already doing more than most, and you don't need to do anything. And of course, delegating is the part that most new leaders, really, really struggle with at best, right? So, with that said, so tell me about what can people do on it today to make that assessment, and what actions should they take for themselves to start on the path of recovery or building resilience?
Well, if you're struggling and you're listening to this and you're saying, I think my resilience is low, I would say it's important to find out what that is. Measure map and build your resilience. This is important. This is your responsibility. One of the things I often remind everyone when I speak is that when you come on the planet, when you were born, you've been given a little capsule that says time. Time is energy. And that takes resilience to move you through that. And how you use that is up to you. But when this capsule is finished, your time here is done.
Yeah.
So when I speak of resilience, it's not airy fairy, an abstract concept. It's real life. It's the reality. And as you travel through life, that little capsule is like that hourglass, and it's running. And there are some things and tricks that you can do to sustain your resilience smartly. There is intelligence. We've been given intelligence on how to. And most of the work we do is based on the well-being intelligence system, is understanding the power we have when we pull. And you talk a little bit about multitasking. When we start looking at these areas of our lives as uniquely important and giving them the attention they need to develop. For instance, most people, when I started doing the 9 dimensions, many people would say to me, oh, Joyce, spiritual is not important. I was like,
Mhm.
well, spiritual, this is where your beliefs stay. This is where your purpose live. This is where your values live. This is where hope, trust, gratitude, faith, courage, integrity, this is where it lives. So if you don't want to have anything to do with spiritual, then you don't want to have, this is where breath live. You don't want to you don't want to be part of life. This is the most important element of our life. And most people go through life without ever spending time to develop their capacity there. So they burn out a lot faster
Yeah.
because this is where you build your resilience anchors, and everything else is built upon that. And this gives you more energy, more time, and better use of this little capsule that you've gotten when you came here.
It is funny you say because time is the only thing in life you'll never get back.
You'll
Right?
never get.
There's the fact that 92% of the things we worry about never happen. We allow people to live rent free in our brains all of the time while they don't deserve to be there. And we care way too much what other people think about us, which again is a waste of time.
Energy,
Right?
yes.
So I use the 5 pillars, which are 5 of the 9 that you're using. But I explain it. That's your soil, right? That is where if you want to grow this big, beautiful, fruit tree, the first thing you need to do is take care of the soil, right?
Yes.
Even before you put the seed into it. So if you want to be successful in life, you better be paying attention to those 9 or 5 pillars that we talked about, and they are in a constant state of motion. So they're not always like, oh, I do this today and therefore it is for forever, right? There's no different positive quotation or emotional intelligence. IQ is something we are born with. That's a fixed number, although it's optimized through culture and exposure. But you are what you are. Everything else is like a muscle, right? If you don't build it and don't maintain it, you'll lose it, and the impact of that is often on the negative side. So as we wrap up the conversation, because again we could talk about this for hours and hours.
We good.
So give the audience 2 or 3 things that they can do today that allows them to make an assessment, but also the first step of recovery to build resilience.
First step is to recognize that you're not failing, you're not a failure, you are a human beings, and we're all imperfect, and we're dealing with the same things. So you need to map out what kind of life you want to live and what you're going to do with this capsule of time. How you're going to conserve your energy, and you're going to start looking for the wisdom in all of these 9 dimensions. Right? You can pick 4 or 5 that you decide those are the only ones you want to do, but there are 9. You choose. You make that choice of what you're going to do with the time, and then you start to measure your resilience. We have the Wiz Resilience platform, and it gives people the opportunity to measure their resilience in all the 9 dimensions. We have opened it up so our listeners can measure their first dimension, which is the spiritual, which I talk about, so they can build those resilience anchors. It helps you, it walks you through an awareness of why those are important, what are some of the pieces, and then it helps you to measure, and it gives you a resilience index. And it tells you what you can do from now, what you can do later, what you can do this week, next week, and the next month to build those resilience. And that will look different for everyone because it's a personalized resilience index that you go. If you go to my website at interpersonalwellness.com, you will get, or if you leave a message for me that you heard on this podcast and you want to do the resilience, you'll be able to get in and get access to the resilience, the resilience index, and complete it, because that is so important for all of us to know what we're doing on this planet, why are we here, and what we're doing with that time we've been given.
Yeah, laying a foundation and baseline is critically important. So thank you for sharing where we can find you. In the show notes, I'll put in what you have sent to me in a separate document so people can look you up on all the social media accounts. So give me a parting thought.
I think a parting thought I want to say is, if you want a faster way to know what your resilience is that you have to pay attention to what you spend your thoughts on. Thoughts are one of the easiest way to lose energy and lose your resilience. And so when people talk about mindset, most times we don't teach people how to build mindset. The mindset is the belief system that anchors there that you're going to use to assess the thoughts that come through your mind. So be aware of what you think, because that will deflate your resilience.
Excellent. I just finished a podcast with Brady and Black talking about mindset matters, and this conversation today about resilience really ties in nicely. So it's good to see them both being published today. Joyce, thank you very much for joining me today on the show. I really appreciate your time and your insight into the audience. Again, without meaningful, intentional actions, it's very difficult to reach your big dreams, right? It takes big, dream big, but you need to act small. I would highly recommend you to go to the Apple Store, look up the Dutch Mentor, all one word, download the 7-day free trial of the Smart Performance app. In there, you will be able to find our show. You will find additional information. And of course, you can go through whatever, 5 pillars that you need most help with. Dive into that and go on that deep commitment of 15 minutes a day. You too can be anything you want to be. Thank you very much for everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you the next time. Joyce, have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Dutch. Wow.